Hey everyone, hope you're doing great. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we'll dive into what if Deku mastered one for all before the sports festival. Smash that subscribe button, and be sure to peek at the description below. Let's begin. The steady, rhythmic beeping of the heart monitor was the first thing Izuku Midoriya heard as consciousness clawed its way back to him. It was a cold, clinical sound, a sharp contrast to the chaotic roar of destruction that was his last memory. He opened his eyes, blinking against the harsh fluorescent lights of the UA infirmary. The smell of antiseptic stung his nose. He tried to sit up, but a wave of exhaustion pinned him to the mattress. He looked down. His right arm was encased in a heavy cast, and his legs were elevated, wrapped tight in bandages. The memory of the entrance exam crashed into him. The 0-pointer. The girl trapped in the rubble. The jump. The sensation of power, raw, unbridled, and terrifying, surging through his limbs. And then the snap. You're awake. Finally, the voice was small but sharp as a whip. Izuku turned his head to see Recovery Girl sitting on a swivel chair, her expression thunderous. Beside her, looming large even in his deflated, skeletal form, stood All Might. The symbol of peace looked like a child caught with his hand in the cookie jar. Recovery Girl. Izuku croaked, his throat dry. Did I pass? That isn't the priority right now. Recovery Girl snapped, hopping off her chair. She marched over to the bed and tapped his cast with her cane. Do you have any idea what you've done to your body, boy? Comminuted fractures in the right arm. Shattered legs. If I hadn't been on site to perform emergency surgery before applying my quirk, you might have lost the use of these limbs permanently. Izuku went pale. I didn't know how to control it. Recovery Girl spun on her heel, pointing her cane accusingly at All Might. And you? I told you to find a successor, Tashinori, not a sacrifice. You handed a loaded gun to a toddler, and told him to pull the trigger. All Might flinched, shrinking into his oversized yellow suit. I admit, the results were more severe than I anticipated. I thought the beach training would be enough to... Enough to what? She interrupted. Withstand the backlash of a quirk you've spent 40 years stockpiling? This boy has zero foundation for quirk handling. If he breaks himself like this again, I won't be able to fix him. There is a limit to how much life force a human body has. Keep this up, and he won't make it to graduation. He'll make it to a grave. The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. Izuku looked at All Might. The hero wasn't smiling. His blue eyes, usually burning with hope, were clouded with a deep, terrifying guilt. I'm sorry, young Midoriya, All Might whispered. I was so eager to pass on the torch. I forgot that the flame burns. It's not your fault, All Might. Izuku tried to shout, but it came out as a rasp. I just need to try harder. I need to work out more. No, All Might said firmly. He placed a hand on Izuku's uninjured shoulder. Muscle mass isn't the issue. You carried the fridge. You cleaned the beach. The vessel is ready, but the operator is blind. I am a natural-born hero, Midoriya. When I received this power, I could just do it. I never had to learn the mechanics because my body instinctively understood. All Might stood up straight, his skeletal frame trembling slightly. I am a terrible teacher. And if I keep trying to teach you my way, I'm going to kill you. Tashinori, Recovery Girl softened slightly, seeing the genuine horror on his face. What are you going to do? School starts in 4 weeks. He can't participate in the curriculum like this. All Might walked to the window, staring out at the campus. I have to swallow my pride. There is one person. The man who taught me. The only man I fear. Izuku blinked. You fear him? All Might shivered, a visible ripple of trauma passing through him. He is strict. He is brutal. But he understands the mechanics of one for all better than I ever did. If anyone can teach you how to use this power without blowing your limbs off before the first homeroom, it's him. All Might pulled a flip phone from his pocket. His thumb hovered over the dial button, shaking. He took a deep breath, squeezed his eyes shut, and pressed call. Hello? Gran Torino? It's Tashinori. Yes. Yes, I know I haven't called. Please stop yelling. I need a favor. A big one. 1 week later, the cast on Izuku's arm had been removed, replaced by a compression sleeve, thanks to Recovery Girl's accelerated healing sessions spaced out over the week. He was healed, but his stamina was drained, and his nerves were frayed. All Might had given him an address and a train ticket. Go to Kofu, he had said. I've explained the situation. He's expecting you. Just try not to die. And bring him taiyaki. He likes the custard kind. Izuku stood in front of a dilapidated apartment complex in Yamanashi Prefecture. The building looked abandoned. The paint was peeling, the metal railings were rusted, and the air smelled of dust and old rain. This is the place? Izuku muttered, checking the note in his hand. Apartment 206. He walked up the creaking stairs, clutching a box of premium custard taiyaki as if it were a holy relic. He reached the door. The nameplate was scratched off. He knocked. Hello? Excuse me. I'm Izuku Midoriya. All Might sent me. No answer. He knocked again. The door creaked open. It had been unlocked. Hello? Izuku stepped into the gloom. The room was a wreck. Papers were scattered everywhere. Furniture was overturned, and in the middle of the floor, a small, elderly man lay face down in a pool of red liquid. Ah! Izuku screamed, dropping his bag. Oh my God! Sir! Sir! He scrambled over, panic seizing his chest. Villains? An accident? Is he dead? I need to call an ambulance. Izuku fumbled for his phone, his hands shaking. Stay with me. All Might, I'm so sorry, I was too late. Who are you calling, kid? The voice came from the floor. The old man lifted his head, licking some of the red liquid off his cheek. This is ketchup. I tripped carrying my sausages. Izuku froze, phone halfway to his ear. Huh! The old man sprang up with agility that defied his age. He was short, wearing a white cape and a yellow suit that had seen better days. He had a prominent nose and a wild beard. He snatched the box of taiyaki from Izuku's frozen hands. Ooh, tribute. Good. Tashinori taught you some manners, at least. He opened the box and took a bite. I'm Sorihiko Torino. Grand Torino to you. So, you're the 9th holder? Izuku was still processing the whiplash. Why yes, sir. I'm Izuku Midoriya. Grand Torino chewed thoughtfully, his eyes scanning Izuku like an X-ray machine. It was uncomfortable. Izuku felt like the old man was counting the muscle fibers beneath his skin. You're stiff, Torino said bluntly. You're standing there like a board. Tashinori told me you broke your arm and legs with a single punch. Pathetic, Izuku winced. I know. I'm trying to catch up. Catch up to what? Torino snapped. All Might? You're not All Might. If you try to run his race, you'll trip and break your neck. Tashinori is a moron who relies on brute force because he's a freak of nature. You look like a scrawny rabbit. I know I'm not him, Izuku said, clenching his fists. But I have to be the symbol of peace. I have to. Wrong. Torino kicked Izuku in the shin. Hard. Oh, stop thinking about symbols and peace and saving the world. Right now, you can't even save a cat from a tree without blowing your arm off. Your goal isn't to be a hero. Your goal is to not explode. Clear? Clear. Izuku rubbed his shin. Good. Put your costume on. The green jumpsuit thing. We're going to see what you're made of. 10 minutes later, Izuku stood in the center of the cluttered living room in his teal tracksuit. He felt ridiculous. Attack me, Torino said, standing casually with his cane. But inside? It's dangerous, Izuku stammered. And I can't control my power. If I use it, I'll destroy the building. If you can't hit an old man without destroying the building, you have no business going to UA, Torino scoffed. Just try to grab me. Use your quirk. Izuku hesitated. I can't use 100%. I'll kill him. But I can't regulate it yet. Maybe just a finger. He gritted his teeth. Smash! He focused the power into his right index finger, feeling the familiar, agonizing accumulation of energy. He lunged, flicking his finger to generate a blast of wind pressure aimed at Torino. Too slow. Before Izuku could even release the energy, a yellow blur slammed into his stomach. Gah! The air left Izuku's lungs. He doubled over. Torino was bouncing off the walls. Literally. He was a pinball of kinetic energy, zipping from the floor to the ceiling to the bookshelf. Jets. He had jets on his feet. You're telegraphing. Torino shouted from the ceiling. You stop, you brace, you clench your teeth, and then you fire. In a real fight, you're dead 3 times over before you even activate your quirk. Torino dove, slamming his heel into the back of Izuku's head, driving him into the floor. Izuku groaned, face pressed against the dusty carpet. I can't track you, because your eyes are too slow. Your brain is too slow. Torino landed on top of the TV. And your quirk usage is garbage. You treat one for all like a special move. Like a gun you keep in a holster. You pull it out, fire, and the recoil breaks your arm. Izuku pushed himself up, wiping blood from his nose. That's how All Might does it. He summons the power and Tashinori summons it instantly because he breathes it. Torino yelled. For you, it's a process. Load. Aim. Fire. It takes too long, and because you're channeling 100% into a single point, your body can't handle the sudden change in pressure. It's like trying to push a waterfall through a garden hose. Torino hopped down and walked over to the microwave in the corner kitchen. He pointed at it. You're hungry. Heat up a taiyaki. But listen to me carefully. If that taiyaki is frozen stiff, and you put the microwave on max power for 10 minutes, what happens? Izuku blinked, confused by the sudden shift. The outside would burn, or it would explode. Exactly. But if you put it on low heat for a long time, it warms up evenly. One for all is the electricity, Torino said, tapping the side of his head. You're the taiyaki. Right now you're flipping the switch to max power for a split second every time you punch. You're exploding yourself. Izuku stared at the microwave. The hum of the machine filled the silence. The switch. He thought about the entrance exam. The feeling of the power rushing to his legs. It was violent. Sudden. So. Izuku murmured. I shouldn't switch it on and off? Use your head, boy, Torino grunted, walking back to the couch. How do you breathe? I just do? Do you have to think, okay, lungs, inhale now every time you take a breath? Do you have to think legs, contract muscles every time you take a step? No. It's subconscious. It's continuous, precisely. Torino's eyes narrowed. One for all shouldn't be a weapon you fire. It should be a part of your body. A natural state. Instead of focusing the power into your finger or your arm, spread it out. Let the current flow through every nerve, every muscle, every inch of you. Don't let it pool in one spot. Keep it moving. And lower the voltage. Izuku closed his eyes. Don't summon it. Liven it. He visualized the power. Usually, he imagined it as an egg exploding. A violent burst. Change the image. He thought of the microwave. A steady, humming heat. He thought of an intricate circuit board, electricity flowing smoothly through thousands of pathways. Not a lightning strike, but a current. Spread it out. Don't go to 100%. Just 5%. He felt the heat in his stomach, the core of One for All. He grabbed it mentally. Instead of pushing it all into his right arm, he tried to guide it. Down his legs. Up his spine. Into his shoulders. Into his fingertips. It fought him. The power wanted to rage. It wanted to be released. It was a hurricane trapped in a bottle. Calm down, Izuku told the power. Flow. Just flow. A spark jumped across his skin. Then another. HNNNGH. Izuku gritted his teeth, sweat beading on his forehead. It felt like he was holding back a floodgate with his bare hands. Slowly, very slowly, a faint green lightning began to crackle around his body. It wasn't the violent, jagged discharge of the entrance exam. It was softer. Rhythmic. His hair spiked up slightly. The air around him vibrated with a low hum. He felt lighter. Stronger. But his bones didn't ache. He opened his eyes. He looked at his hands. The red veins of One for All were glowing softly beneath his skin, pulsing in time with his heart. I'm doing it, Izuku whispered. It doesn't hurt. Gran Torino watched him, a small, terrifying grin spreading across his face. Not bad for a novice. You've managed to lower the output to about 5%. Your body can handle that without breaking. 5%. Izuku clenched his fist. He could feel the strength there. It wasn't the godlike power of All Might, but it was his. It feels natural. Don't get cocky, Torino said, raising his cane. Maintaining that state while standing still is one thing. Maintaining it while moving? While fighting? While panicking? That's where the real work begins. Torino vanished. This time, Izuku saw him. It was just a blur, a streak of yellow, but his eyes, enhanced by the subtle flow of energy, caught the motion. Torino was coming from the left. Izuku didn't have to think dodge. His body, fueled by the electric current, simply reacted. He ducked. Torino's kick sailed over his head. The old man landed on the wall, looking genuinely surprised. Oh? Izuku looked at his own hands, amazed. I saw you. You saw me, Torino agreed. Now, let's see if you can survive me. He launched himself off the wall. Training begins now, kid. If you drop the transformation, I beat you. If you lose focus, I beat you. If you sleep, I beat you. Keep that current running until it feels as natural as breathing. Day 3 of training. The damp alleyways of Kofu were a maze, and Izuku was the rat. Too slow. Tighten the turn. Gran Torino was a demon. For 3 days, Izuku hadn't known peace. He had to keep the power, which he had dubbed full cowl, active constantly. Eating, sleeping, Torino would wake him with a bucket of water if the lightning faded. And running. Izuku drifted around a corner, his iron-soled red boots skidding on the pavement. He channeled the power into his legs, not for a jump, but for a burst of speed. Controlled the output. 5% everywhere. Spiked to 8% in the calves for the turn. He kicked off the wall, launching himself over a dumpster. He felt fluid. Before, his movements were jerky, reliant on normal human muscles until the moment of impact. Now, every movement was assisted. He was a car that never shifted out of gear. Torino was above him, bouncing between the fire escapes. There's a villain ahead. 2 blocks. Hypothetical scenario. Hostage situation. Time limit, 30 seconds. Izuku didn't waste breath answering. He pushed harder. The green lightning crackled louder. He vaulted a fence, landing in a crouch and instantly springing forward. The world was sharpening. He could hear the distant traffic, the hum of vending machines. The processing speed of his brain seemed to have increased to match his body. If I'm fast enough, I don't need to hit hard. Time's up. Torino dropped from the sky, aiming a cane strike at Izuku's shoulder. Izuku pivoted on his left foot, spinning his body. He caught the cane with his right hand. The impact jarred him, but he didn't buckle. I made it in 28 seconds, Izuku panted, grinning through the sweat. Torino yanked the cane back, landing on a trash can. You're getting sloppy with your energy distribution. When you caught the cane, your output dropped in your legs. If I had swept you, you'd be on your face. I noticed, Izuku admitted. It's hard to multitask. Heroism is multitasking. Torino barked. Saving people, fighting villains, controlling your quirk, watching the environment, keeping the public calm. If you can't do 5 things at once, you're useless. He pointed the cane at Izuku. Again. Back to the start. And this time, carry this. He tossed a heavy bag of trash at Izuku. A hostage, Torino grinned. Don't drop him. Day 14 of training. The trash heap of Dagoba Beach was gone, but the memories remained. Izuku stood in the center of the dusty apartment, his body trembling. Not from weakness, but from exertion. He had been holding full cow for 6 hours straight. Eat, Torino commanded, sliding a plate of cold soba across the table. Izuku picked up the chopsticks. His hand sparked with green energy. The chopsticks snapped. Control, Torino chided. You're gripping too hard. You're treating the chopsticks like an enemy. Izuku sighed, grabbing a new pair. He focused. Gentle. The power is water. Let it flow around the chopsticks. He managed to pick up the noodles. He ate, the green electricity still humming over his skin like a second layer of clothing. You're improving, Torino said, a rare admission. Your body is adapting to the stress. The constant 5% load is forcing your muscles to become denser, tougher. You're building a vessel capable of holding more. I tried to push it to 10% yesterday, Izuku said between bites. It felt like my bones were vibrating. It hurt. Don't rush it, Torino warned. 5% is your safe zone. 8% is your red line. Anything above that, and you risk fractures again. For the sports festival, or whatever silly school events you have, 5% is more than enough to handle a bunch of amateurs. It's not just about the festival, Izuku said, looking down at his glowing hand. I want to be able to save people. Like you said, speed is important. But sometimes you need power. Power comes from the hips, Torino grumbled. And from the heart, or some nonsense like that. Listen, kid. One for All has had 8 users before you. We all fought differently. I was fast. Nana was strong. Tashinori was invincible. You need to find your own style. You're a tactical fighter. You think. Use that. Don't just punch. Outmaneuver. Torino stood up. Tonight is the last night. Tomorrow, you go back to Mizutafu. School starts Monday. Izuku stood up, the chair scraping the floor. One last spar? No holding back? Torino smiled, showing his teeth. I never hold back, runt. Put your mask on. The fight that followed destroyed the coffee table, the lamp, and cracked the plaster on the ceiling. For the first time, Izuku didn't just dodge. Torino ricocheted off the wall, coming in for a high-speed kick. Izuku read the trajectory. Instead of backing away, Izuku stepped in. He channeled 8% into his left arm. Detroit Smash, modified. He didn't punch Torino. He punched the air in front of him just as Torino arrived. The wind pressure acted like a wall. Torino hit the compressed air and faltered for a fraction of a second. That was all Izuku needed. He grabbed Torino's cape, used his own momentum to spin, and threw the old man onto the couch. Torino bounced off the cushions, landing on his feet, but he looked at Izuku with wide eyes. Izuku stood panting, his fists smoking slightly. He hadn't broken anything. Izuku smiled nervously. I got you. Gran Torino adjusted his cape, hiding his proud smile. You got lucky. The couch absorbed the impact. If that was concrete, you'd have bruised his ribs. But, acceptable. You pass. The first day of UA High School, the cherry blossoms were falling. The massive glass structure of UA High glittered in the morning sun. Hundreds of students were walking through the gates, nervous energy palpable in the air. Izuku Midoriya stood at the gate. A month ago, he had been a trembling mess, terrified of his own shadow, hiding broken bones under a thick cast. Today, he stood tall. His uniform fit a little tighter around the shoulders. Muscle mass gained not just from beach cleaning, but from the high-intensity gravity of Gran Torino's training. He wasn't hunched over. He wasn't muttering. He took a deep breath. He could feel it. The hum. Deep in his gut. The ember of One for All wasn't a raging fire he had to keep the lid on anymore. It was a pilot light. Always burning. Always ready. He closed his eyes for a second. Full cowl. He didn't activate the lightning. That would draw attention. But he let the energy flood his veins, waking up his nervous system. His perception sharpened. The sound of footsteps became distinct. The wind on his face felt detailed. Deku! The voice was sweet and familiar. Ochako Uraraka ran up to him, beaming. You're here! I was worried. I heard you got hurt really bad in the exam. Izuku opened his eyes and smiled. It was a confident smile. I'm okay, Uraraka-san. Recovery girl fixed me up. And I did some training. Whoa, she blinked, tilting her head. You look different. Taller? Maybe a little, he chuckled. Move it, Deku. The growl came from behind. Katsuki Bakugo stomped past them, his hands in his pockets, scowling at the ground. He didn't even look at Izuku. To Bakugo, Izuku was still the corkless pebble on the side of the road, someone who had fluked his way in or surely died from the exam injuries. In the past, Izuku would have flinched. He would have apologized and shuffled out of the way. This time, Izuku just watched him go. He analyzed Bakugo's gait. He's leaning forward. Aggressive center of gravity. Open to a sweep. Come on, Izuku said to Uraraka. We don't want to be late for homeroom. Class 1A. The door was massive. Izuku stepped inside. The chaos was already ensuing. Tenya Ida was scolding Bakugo about feet on the desk. Remove your foot from that desk immediately. Ha! You trying to start something, Four Eyes? Izuku walked to his seat quietly. He sat down, placing his bag on the hook. He felt calm. It was strange. Usually, his heart would be racing, but after facing Gran Torino's supersonic kicks for a month, Ida's arm-chopping gestures seemed like they were happening in slow motion. The door slid open. A yellow sleeping bag rolled in. If you're here to make friends, pack up and leave. Shota Aizawa emerged from the cocoon, looking exhausted and disheveled. The class went silent. It took you 8 seconds to shut up. That's not going to work. Time is limited. You kids are irrational. He pulled a gym uniform out of his bag. Put these on and meet me on the grounds. We're doing a quirk apprehension test. A test? Uraraka exclaimed. What about the entrance ceremony? The guidance counselor meeting? If you want to be a hero, you don't have time for such leisurely events, Aizawa deadpanned. UA is unrestrained in its traditions. That means I run my class how I see fit. Aizawa's eyes swept over the class, landing briefly on Izuku. He narrowed his eyes. He had read the file. Midoriya Izuku. Shattered arm and legs during entrance exam. Self-destructive quirk. Liability. Aizawa hated liabilities. Softball throw, Aizawa said. Bakugo, you finished first in the entrance exam. What was your record in middle school? 67 meters. Try it with your quirk. Bakugo stepped into the circle. He grinned, a feral expression. Die. Boom. The ball rocketed into the sky, propelled by a massive explosion. 705.2 meters, Aizawa read off his device. The class gasped. Awesome. We can use our quirks as much as we want? This looks like fun. Aizawa's expression darkened. Fun? You have 3 years to become a hero. You think it's going to be fun? He smiled, a creepy, wide expression. Right. Let's make this interesting. The student who ranks last in total points will be judged to have no potential, and will be instantly expelled. Eh? The class erupted in panic. Izuku stood silently in the back. He adjusted his gloves. Expulsion. He looked at Aizawa. He saw the deception, but also the truth. Aizawa would do it. If he saw weakness, he would cut it. He expects me to break, Izuku realized. He thinks I'm a glass cannon. The tests began. 50-meter dash. Ida, 3.04 seconds. Izuku stepped up against Bakugo. Don't cry when you lose, Deku, Bakugo sneered, smoke rising from his palms. Ready. Go! Bakugo blasted off, explosions propelling him backward. Izuku didn't use an explosion. He breathed. Full call 5%. Green lightning flickered. His shoes dug into the dirt. Dash. He was a green blur. He didn't fly, he ran. But each stride was powered by the accumulated strength of a stockpile quirk. Bakugo crossed the line at 4.13 seconds. Izuku crossed at 5.51 seconds. Bakugo skidded to a halt, turning around to mock Deku, only to freeze. Izuku was right there. He hadn't been left in the dust. He was only a second behind. What the? Bakugo muttered. Since when are you that fast? Izuku deactivated the cowl, exhaling steam. I've been jogging. Grip strength. Izuku channeled the power into his hand. The device beeped. 260 kilograms. Beside him, Shoji scored 540 kilograms. Izuku wasn't the strongest, but he was far above average. Standing long jump. Izuku cleared the sandbox entirely, using a burst of 8% to propel him through the air like a grasshopper. Aizawa watched from the sidelines, his brow furrowed. He's not breaking. He's controlling it? The file said he had zero control. Finally. The ball throw. This was the moment. Izuku walked to the circle. Midoriya isn't doing too bad, Kaminari whispered to Mineta. But isn't his quirk super strength? He hasn't done anything crazy yet. He's gonna break his bones, Bakugo muttered, watching intently. He's a quirkless loser who stole a quirk, or something. Watch. He'll explode. Izuku held the ball. He looked at the sky. If I use 100%, I beat Bakugo. But I lose my arm. And Aizawa expels me for being a liability. If I use 5%, it might not be enough to impress him. Torino said power comes from the hips. Izuku widened his stance. He took a deep breath. One for all. Full cowl. The green lightning surged, enveloping his entire body. The dust around his feet kicked up. The class went silent, watching the display of energy. Don't just use the arm. Use the whole body. Kinetic chain. He wound up. He twisted his hips, engaging his core, his shoulder, and finally his arm. Focus everything into the fingertips at the last second. Push past the limit just for an instant. 10%. Smash! Izuku threw the ball. The air cracked. A shockwave rippled through the gathered students, blowing their hair back. The ball disappeared into the stratosphere. Izuku stood in the circle, his arms smoking. His fingers were red and stinging, throbbing with a dull ache, but they weren't broken. He flexed his hand. It held. Aizawa stared at the device. He blinked. Then he showed the screen to the class. 705.3 meters. 0.1 meters further than Bakugo. He didn't break his finger? Uraraka cheered. That was amazing, Deku! He beat Bakugo? Izuku turned to Aizawa, clutching his stinging but functional hand. Sensei. I can still move. Aizawa's erasure hair, which had started to float up, preparing to cancel the quirk, dropped back down. A small, impressed smirk touched his lips. Ho! Looks like the file was outdated. DKU. An explosion rocked the field. Bakugo was launching himself at Izuku, his face twisted in pure, unadulterated rage. You bastard! You were hiding this? Tell me how you did that. You tricked me. He was fast. He was lethal. He was going to blow Izuku's face off. In another life, Izuku would have screamed. In another life, Aizawa would have had to use his capture tape. But this Izuku had spent a month being hunted by Gran Torino. Bakugo swung a right hook, explosions popping in his palm. Izuku saw it coming. The telegraph was massive compared to Torino. Step inside the guard. Izuku ducked under the swing, the heat singing his hair. He grabbed Bakugo's outstretched arm with his right hand, used his left arm to lock Bakugo's shoulder, and pivoted his hips. Basic judo throw 5% strength. Get off! Bakugo yelled. Izuku slammed Bakugo into the dirt. It wasn't a malicious hit, but it was decisive. The wind was knocked out of the blonde bomber. Izuku pinned him, knee on Bakugo's chest, arm locked. The class went dead silent. Izuku looked down at his childhood bully. Bakugo's eyes were wide, filled with shock. He couldn't move. Izuku was stronger. I'm not a punching bag anymore, Kaken, Izuku said, his voice steady, though his heart was hammering. I'm going to be a hero. And you can't stop me. He let go and stood up, offering a hand. Bakugo slapped it away, scrambling back, breathing hard. He looked at Izuku like he was seeing a ghost. Alright, that's enough, Aizawa said, stepping in. His voice was bored, but his eyes were sharp. He looked at Izuku with a new calculation. High combat awareness. Restraint. Control. And he neutralized the most aggressive student in the class without causing injury. Midoriya, Aizawa said. Yes, sir. Good throw. Now get back in line. We have more tests to do. Izuku bowed. Yes, sir. As he walked back to the group, Uraraka and Ida swarmed him. That was incredible. Uraraka squealed. You flipped him like a pancake. Excellent form. Ida chopped the air. Although fighting fellow students is against the rules, it was clearly self-defense. Izuku looked at his hand again. The green sparks had faded, but the warmth remained. He looked toward the gate, toward the city beyond. Somewhere out there, All Might was probably waiting for a report, and Gran Torino was probably eating taiyaki. He clenched his fist. I'm here. I'm really here. The jet-black teacher had done his job. The vessel was ready. And the sports festival was coming. The dust settled over the pea grounds, but the silence lingered long after the shockwave had dissipated. Class 1A stood in a loose semicircle, their eyes darting between the smoking crater in the dirt, the frozen figure of Katsuki Bakugo, and the green-haired boy who was calmly dusting off his gym uniform. Izuku Midoriya flexed his right hand. It was red, swollen, and throbbed with a dull, rhythmic ache, but the fingers moved. They curled into a fist and extended back out. The bones were intact. All right, Aizawa's voice cut through the tension like a serrated knife. He didn't look at the students. He was staring at the tablet in his hand, tapping the screen with the stylus. The drama is over. We have more tests. Midoriya, get back in line. Bakugo, if you try to attack a classmate again, I won't just erase your quirk, I'll suspend you. Bakugo was breathing heavily, his chest heaving. His pupils were dilated, shaking as they locked onto Izuku. For the first time in his life, Katsuki Bakugo didn't have a comeback. He had been flipped, physically manhandled by the pebble he had spent a decade kicking down the road. He jerked his arm away from Kirishima, who had tried to offer a reassuring pat, and stomped back to his place in line. But the glare he fixed on Izuku wasn't just anger anymore. It was confusion. And fear. The test continued, sidestep agility. Izuku stood between the white lines. In the past, he would have relied on pure effort. Now, he closed his eyes for a fraction of a second. Switch on. 5%. Flow. The green lightning sparked around his calves. The world seemed to slow down. Start. Izuku moved. He wasn't the fastest. Mineta's bouncing balls were uniquely suited for this, and Ida's engines were built for speed, but Izuku was a blur of efficiency. Left, right, his feet barely touched the ground. He moved with the rhythmic precision of a metronome. Whoa, Ciro muttered. Look at his movement. It's like he's gliding. Sit UPS. Izuku hooked his legs. He didn't use the quirk here. He wanted to test his base strength. The months of hauling trash on the beach, combined with Gran Torino's sadistic calisthenics, paid off. He cranked them out with machine-like consistency, his core tight, his breathing controlled. Seated toe touch. This was his weak point. His muscles were dense, compacted by the training. He wasn't naturally flexible. He stretched, gritting his teeth, barely passing the average. Gotta work on flexibility, he noted mentally. Torino is like rubber. I'm like wood. Distance run. This was where full cowl shone. While others sprinted and burned out, Izuku maintained a low-level 3% charge. It took the strain off his lungs and heart. He ran alongside Yaoyorozu and Ida, keeping a steady pace while others lagged behind, gasping for air. When the test finally concluded, the sun was beginning to dip, casting long, orange shadows across the campus. Gather round, Aizawa said, looking more exhausted than the students. I'm going to display the results. As I said, the person in last place will be expelled. The holographic display lit up. 1. Momo Yaoyorozu. 2. Shoto Todoroki. 3. Katsuki Bakugo. 4. Tenya Ida. 5. Izuku Midoriya. 20. Minoru Mineta. Izuku stared at his name. 5th. He hadn't used 100%. He hadn't broken a single bone. He had simply performed consistently, using a fraction of his power to enhance his natural athleticism. In the canon timeline, he had been dead last, saved only by Aizawa's mercy. Here, he was firmly in the top tier. Aizawa pressed a button, and the screen vanished. By the way, the expulsion was a logical ruse. Huh? The class erupted. It was a deception to draw out your maximum potential, Aizawa said, turning his back to them. He began to walk away, his scarf trailing behind him. Welcome to UA. The curriculum sheets are in the classroom. Don't leave your trash behind. As the class dissolved into relief and chatter, Yaoyorozu sighed. It was obviously a lie. With a quirk assessment of this magnitude, cutting a student on the first day would be statistically irrational. I didn't notice at all. Uraraka cried, clutching her chest. I was so scared for you, Deku. Izuku watched Aizawa walking away. He saw the way the teacher's shoulders were set. It wasn't a lie, Izuku thought, a chill running down his spine. If I had broken my arm, if I had shown I couldn't control my power, he would have sent me home. He was testing my viability. He looked at his hand again. The swelling was already going down. I survived. The walk home. The walk to the station was usually a solitary affair for Izuku, filled with muttering and notebook scribbling. Today, he was flanked by Uraraka and Ida. That throw was magnificent. Ida was making chopping motions with his hands, as if dissecting the air. 705 meters. You nearly matched Bakugo-kun, and the way you utilized your quirk, it wasn't just brute force. I saw the lightning. It's an enhancement type, correct? Similar to my engines, but whole body? Yeah, something like that, Izuku stammered, rubbing the back of his neck. He wasn't used to praise. It's tricky to control. If I use too much, I get hurt. But you didn't. Uraraka beamed. You were glowing green and you looked so cool. Like. Zoom. I am curious, though. Ida adjusted his glasses. Bakugo-kun seemed very personally invested in your performance. You two went to middle school together? Izuku's smile faltered. Yeah. We've known each other since we were kids. He calls you Deku, Uraraka said. Is that your name? It sounds kinda cute, but it's an insult, Izuku explained, looking at his feet. It means useless or wooden puppet. Kaken uses it to make fun of me. That's terrible. Ida frowned. Unbecoming of a hero aspirant. But Uraraka tapped her chin. I think it sounds like Dikairu. You know, I can do it. I like it. Izuku stopped walking. The sunset bathed the street in gold. He looked at Uraraka, who was smiling genuinely. Deku. He whispered. I like it too. She affirmed. Izuku felt his face heat up. Then I'm Deku. Midoriya-kun, you accept it that easily? Ida gasped. It's a paradigm shift, Izuku said, laughing nervously. As they reached the station and parted ways, Izuku felt lighter than air. He had friends. He had a quirk. He wasn't broken. I am here. A massive figure lunged out from around the corner of a convenience store, striking a pose in a gray suit that was 3 sizes too large. Wah! Izuku jumped back, dropping into a combat stance, green sparks flaring for a split second before he realized who it was. All Might? Shoo! All Might coughed, blood spraying slightly from his mouth as he deflated into his skeletal form. Keep it down, young Midoriya. I'm incognito. They moved to a quiet park bench. All Might sat down, looking at Izuku with a mixture of relief and pride. I saw the records, All Might said softly. Aizawa didn't expel you. You placed 5th. Yeah, Izuku nodded. It went okay. Okay? All Might laughed, a wheezing sound. Young Midoriya, do you have any idea how terrified I was? When I heard Aizawa was the homeroom teacher, I thought it was over. He has a reputation for expelling anyone who can't control their power. If you had gone in there with the break and heal strategy, I would be gone, Izuku finished. But you didn't. All Might placed a large, bony hand on Izuku's shoulder. You listened to Gran Torino. You mastered the flow. Full cowl, is it? Yeah. It's still weak. Only about 5%. It is a foundation, All Might said seriously. A house built on rock stands. A house built on sand falls. You have built your rock. I am very proud of you. Izuku felt tears pricking his eyes. He wiped them away quickly. I still have a long way to go. Kaken, he was strong. Even with full cowl, I only barely reacted to him. Young Bakugo has talent, All Might admitted. But today, you proved you have something he lacks right now. What's that? Composure, All Might smiled. Now go home. Rest. Tomorrow is the real beginning. Hero Basic Training. The next day, Hero Basic Training. The morning classes at Yui were surprisingly mundane. English with present mic was loud but standard. Math with ectoplasm was rigorous. Lunch with lunch rush was delicious. Izuku sat with Ida and Uraraka, the Deku squad officially forming over bowls of white rice and beef stew. Izuku found himself actually eating, rather than nervously picking at his food. I wonder what we're doing this afternoon, Uraraka mused. Do you think we'll be fighting robots again? I hope not, Izuku said, checking his notebook. Basic training usually involves quirk application against human targets. Scenarios. Rescues. Human targets? Ida stiffened. Simulation is key. I must prepare my mental faculties. The bell rang. The door to Class 1A burst open. All Might marched into the room, wearing his Silver Age costume, his cape fluttering despite the lack of wind. Coming through the door like a normal person, it's All Might. The class erupted into cheers. Look at that costume. He's huge. All Might marched to the podium, striking a pose. I teach hero basic training. It is a subject where you train in different ways to learn the basics of being a hero. And today, we're jumping right into it. He held up a card. Battle trial. Battle? Bakugo's voice cut through the cheers. He was leaning forward in his seat, his eyes sharp. And for that, All Might pointed to the wall, which began to slide open, revealing numbered suitcases. You need these. Costumes made based on your quirk registrations and requests you sent in before school started. Awesome. Get changed and meet me at Ground Beta. Ground Beta. Izuku stepped out of the tunnel, adjusting his gloves. His costume was green, a teal jumpsuit that Gran Torino had called flashy but functional. It had sturdy knee pads, a utility belt, and iron-soled red boots designed to absorb impact. The respirator mask hung around his neck. The ears on the hood were there, a nod to All Might's hair tufts, but they were sleeker, more aerodynamic than his original sketch. It wasn't a bundle of anxiety stitched together by his mother anymore. It was a uniform. Oh! Deku! Uraraka ran over. She was wearing a tight pink and black suit that seemed to make her a bit self-conscious. You look cool. Very practical. Thanks, Izuku blushed slightly, averting his eyes politely. You look, great too, Uraraka-san. My helmet is a bit tight, Mineta complained nearby, though he was staring intently at the girls. All Might stood before them, hands on his hips. You all look cool. Now, shall we begin? He explained the rules. Villains guard a nuclear weapon. Heroes try to capture it or the villains. 2 on 2. We determine teams by lottery. Izuku stared at the box. Please not Kaken. Please not Kaken. He drew a ball. Team A. Uraraka held up her ball. Team A. We're together again, Deku. Yes. Izuku smiled. That was a relief. Uraraka's zero gravity was versatile. All Might drew the villain team, Team D, Tenya Ida, and Katsuki Bakugo. The air in the monitoring room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Bakugo, who had been sulking near the wall, turned his head slowly. His eyes locked onto Izuku. He didn't scream. He didn't make an explosion. He just smiled, a jagged, terrifying expression of anticipation. It's fate, Bakugo whispered. Team A are heroes. Team D are villains. All Might announced. Everyone else, to the monitoring room, the setup. Inside the building, on the 5th floor, Bakugo and Ida stood by the papier-mâché bomb. Listen, Bakugo-kun, Ida started, waving his hands. Our objective is to protect the weapon. I suggest we barricade the door and create a choke point. Your quirk is loud, but in a confined space. Shut up, Bakugo growled. He was pacing. You stay here. Guard the rock. I'm going hunting. Hunting? That is not the mission. Abandoning your post is poor teamwork. I don't care, Bakugo snarled, walking to the door. That nerd, he's been tricking me. For years. Making me think he was weak. Laughing at me behind my back. Midoriya-kun doesn't seem the type to. You don't know him. Bakugo slammed the door open. He thinks he can look down on me? I'm going to crush him until he can't stand up. Outside, Izuku and Uraraka studied the blueprints. Kaken is going to come for me, Izuku said, his voice steady. He wasn't shaking. He was calculating. You think so? Uraraka asked. I know so. He saw what happened yesterday. His pride is hurt. He won't care about the bomb. He wants a rematch. Izuku tapped the map. Uraraka-san, can you make yourself float? Yeah, but I get nauseous if I do it too long. We need to separate them. Kaken has amazing combat instincts, but he's arrogant. He'll attack me alone. I'll draw his fire. While he's focused on me, you sneak around and find the bomb. It's likely with Ida. Leave you alone with him? Uraraka looked worried. But he's scary. He is, Izuku admitted. He tightened his gloves. The green sparks began to dance around his fingers. But I'm not the same person I was in middle school. I can handle him. Start. All Might's voice boomed over the speakers. Izuku and Uraraka entered the building through a window on the first floor. The hallways were dim, concrete mazes. Full cal 5%. The power hummed under Izuku's skin. His senses expanded. He could hear the hum of the ventilation. He could hear footsteps. Heavy. Fast. Incoming. Izuku shouted, grabbing Uraraka's waist and leaping backward. Boom! The wall around the corner exploded. Dust and debris filled the corridor. From the smoke, a gauntlet hand emerged, followed by the feral grin of Bakugo. Found you, DKU. Bakugo didn't wait. He launched himself forward with an explosion from his right hand, swinging his left for a hook. In the past, Izuku would have frozen. He would have analyzed the explosion. Now he just moved. Torino taught me to flow. Izuku ducked under the hook. He didn't counterattack yet. He slid past Bakugo, putting himself between the villain and Uraraka. Go! Izuku yelled to her. Uraraka nodded, touching her fingers together and floating up toward the ceiling, pushing off a pillar to escape down the side hall. Don't look away! Bakugo screamed, pivoting in midair with terrifying agility. He blasted the floor to correct his momentum, and shot toward Izuku again. Izuku raised his arms in a cross block. Impact. The explosion hit his forearms. It burned. The heat was intense, singing the fabric of his suit, but the 5% reinforcement held his bones together. He slid back 10 feet, his boots carving grooves into the concrete. You're not running, Bakugo spat, smoke rising from his palms. Good. I want to hurt you while you're trying. I'm not trying to hurt you, Kaken, Izuku said, lowering his stance. The green lightning grew brighter. I'm trying to win. That's the same thing. Bakugo lunged. Right blast. Left blast. Feint. Kick. His assault was relentless. He was a prodigy of violence. Every move flowed into the next. But Izuku was a leaf in the wind. Dodge. Weave. Parry. He wasn't fighting back yet. He was downloading Bakugo's pattern. Right hook is wide. He overcommits on the blasts to generate speed. He leaves his stomach open during the recoil. Stop dodging, you damn nerd! Bakugo screamed, frustration mounting. He wasn't landing clean hits. Izuku was slipping through his fingers like water. Torino hits harder, Izuku muttered to himself. What? Bakugo planted his feet. He raised his right arm, pulling the pin on his grenade gauntlet. If you won't stand still, I'll just blow up everything around you. In the monitoring room, All Might gasped. Young Bakugo, stop. Are you trying to kill him? He won't die if he dodges. Click. The blast was massive. A torrent of fire filled the hallway, consuming everything in its path. Izuku's eyes widened. He couldn't dodge sideways. The hall was too narrow. Go up. He channeled 10% into his legs. It hurt, a sharp sting in his muscles, but he needed the power. He jumped. He didn't jump away. He jumped into the walls. He kicked off the left wall, then the right, zigzagging upward above the fireball. The heat licked at his boots. As the explosion roared past below him, destroying the wall behind, Izuku was on the ceiling. Gravity took hold. He fell, right on top of Bakugo. Smash! He didn't punch Bakugo's face. He slammed his heel into Bakugo's shoulder. Bakugo buckled. The force drove him to one knee. Gah! Izuku used the momentum to backflip away, landing in a crouch 5 meters back. You! Bakugo stood up, clutching his shoulder. His eyes were bloodshot. You look down on me, from the ceiling? I'm not looking down on you. Izuku yelled back. I'm looking at you. For the first time. You're amazing, Kaken. Your reactions, your power, your drive. You're an incredible fighter. Bakugo froze. But... Izuku stood up straight. You're so focused on beating me, you forgot why we're here. Bakugo blinked. Ha! Uraraka! Izuku touched his earpiece. Status? I found the weapon. Uraraka's voice crackled. 5th floor. Ida saw me, though. He cleaned out the room. There's nothing to float. I'm coming, Izuku said. He looked at Bakugo. Sorry, Kaken. I don't have time to play. Izuku turned and ran. You bastard! Bakugo roared, igniting his palms. Get back here! The chase was on. Izuku knew the layout. He knew Bakugo was faster in a straight line thanks to the explosions, but Izuku had better cornering. He used the capture tape. As he turned a corner, he slapped a strip of tape onto a loose pipe on the wall. Bakugo came flying around the corner a second later. Izuku yanked the tape. The pipe tore loose, clattering into Bakugo's path. Bakugo blasted it aside, but the split-second delay was enough. Izuku was already up the stairs. 4th floor. 5th floor. Ida-kun! Izuku burst into the weapon room. Tenya Ida was standing by the weapon, looking like a stereotypical villain, laughing maniacally. Mwahaha! You cannot defeat me, hero! I have removed all objects from the room. Uraraka-kun cannot use her quirk. Uraraka was hiding behind a pillar. Deku! He's too fast. And I can't get close. Deku! The floor vibrated. Bakugo was coming up the stairs. Izuku had seconds. Uraraka! Izuku yelled. Grab the pillar. What? Just hold on. Izuku charged at Ida. Foolish! Ida revved his engines. Recipro burst. Ida was fast. Faster than Izuku's 5%. He was a blur of blue armor, but Izuku didn't aim for Ida, he aimed for the floor. One for all, 15%. He focused the power into his right leg. The red veins glowed blindingly bright. Detroit stomp. He brought his foot down on the concrete floor in the center of the room. Crack. The structural integrity of the floor gave way. The concrete shattered. The entire middle section of the room collapsed downward, straight onto the 4th floor below. Ida lost his footing as the ground vanished. What the? The debris fell, creating a massive dust cloud. Down below, on the 4th floor stairs, Bakugo looked up just in time to see the ceiling coming down on him. He had to blast himself backward to avoid being crushed by falling rubble. Back in the weapon room, the bomb was falling, but it was tied down. It teetered on the edge of the jagged hole. Ida was scrambling to regain his balance on a slanted slab of concrete. Izuku stood on a safe section near the door. His leg screamed in agony, muscle fibers torn, shin bruised, but not broken. Now Uraraka, who had clung to the pillar, released her grip. She ran across the remaining stable floor. Ida was too busy trying not to fall into the pit to intercept her. She dove. Home run! She slapped the weapon. Weapon recovered. All Might's voice shouted, sounding absolutely stunned. The hero team wins. The aftermath. The dust settled. Izuku sat on the floor, panting. He clutched his right leg. It hurt like hell, but he could walk on it. He looked down through the hole. Bakugo was standing amidst the rubble on the floor below. He was staring up at Izuku through the hole. He wasn't screaming anymore. He looked hollow. I lost? Bakugo whispered. To him? He hadn't been beaten in a fist fight. He had been outmaneuvered. Outsmarted. Ignored. Time to head back. All Might announced. Medical bots are on the way. The monitoring room. The atmosphere was heavy. Well, All Might coughed, standing at the front. That was destructive. But effective. Who can tell me who the MVP of this match was? Yayorozu raised her hand instantly. It was Midoriya-san. Izuku blinked. Me? Yes, Momo nodded, her ponytail bobbing. Ida-san prepared poorly for a destructive quirk, assuming the floor would hold. Bakugo-san acted on personal grudges and abandoned the objective. Uraraka-san followed orders but lacked initiative until the end. She turned to Izuku. You, however, acted with the most situational awareness. You neutralized the threat of Bakugo-san without engaging in a drawn-out brawl that would risk time. You coordinated with your teammate. And your final move, while risky to the building's integrity, completely disrupted the villain's defensive advantage. Wait, Kaminari pointed out. Didn't he destroy the floor? Isn't that bad? In a real situation, yes, it brings risks, Momo conceded. But considering the weapon was nuclear, Creating a vertical separation between the villain and the bomb is a valid tactical choice to prevent detonation triggers. It was bold. All Might's sweat dropped. I was going to say Ida because he stayed with the bomb, but she makes a better point. Why yes. Exactly. Young Yaoyorozu is correct. Izuku felt a hand on his back. It was Uraraka. You were awesome, Deku. That stomp was scary though. Thanks. Izuku smiled weakly. He looked across the room. Bakugo was standing in the corner, staring at the wall. He was shaking. Locker rooms. The day ended. The adrenaline was fading, replaced by the dull ache of bruised muscles. Izuku changed into his uniform. He knew he had to talk to him. Kaken. Bakugo froze. He was tying his tie, his back to Izuku. What? His voice was low, raspy. I know you're angry, Izuku said, clutching his backpack straps. I know you think I tricked you. But I didn't. I didn't have a quirk before. Not really. Bakugo turned around slowly. His eyes were red. Then how? I can't tell you everything, Izuku said, meeting his gaze. But I got this power recently. And I've been working myself to death to learn how to use it. It's not something I was born with. It's something I had to earn. Earn? Bakugo laughed, a dry, bitter sound. You think you earned the right to look down on me? I told you. Izuku stepped forward, his voice rising. I'm not looking down on you. You were always the amazing one. You were the one who could do anything. That's why I wanted to beat you, because if I can beat you, then I can be a hero too. Silence stretched between them. The other boys, Kirishima, Kaminari, Tokoyami, watched awkwardly, sensing the history. Bakugo stared at Izuku. He saw the fire in the nerd's eyes. It wasn't the scared look of the kid who followed him around the creek. It was the look of a rival. You won today, Bakugo spat, shouldering his bag. He walked past Izuku, bumping his shoulder hard. But don't get used to it. I'm going to be number one, and that means I'm going to crush you, and that half-and-half bastard, and everyone else. He stopped at the door, not looking back. Next time, Deku. I won't miss. The door slammed shut. Izuku let out a breath he had been holding. He sank onto the bench. Man, Kirishima exhaled. That guy is intense. You okay, Midoriya? Yeah, Izuku nodded, looking at his hand. He clenched it into a fist. I think we're finally starting. He had survived the first battle. He had proven his worth, but he knew this was just the prologue. The real world was waiting. And somewhere out there, villains were watching. As Izuku walked out of the school gates that evening, a cold wind blew past him. He didn't know it yet, but the peace of the classroom was about to be shattered. The USJ was only days away, and thanks to Gran Torino, the green flash was ready. The bus ride to the unforeseen simulation joint, the USJ, was a bubble of innocent excitement. Sunlight streamed through the windows, casting long, shifting shadows across the students of Class 1A. They chattered about quirks, costumes, and the future, blissfully unaware that the future was currently sharpening its knives in the dark. Izuku Midoriya sat near the back, his notebook open on his lap, but he wasn't writing. He was tapping his pen against the paper, a rhythmic click-click-click that matched the low hum of one for all coursing through his veins. Since the sports festival announcement, the atmosphere at UA had shifted. The media was swarming the gates, and the pressure was mounting. But for Izuku, the pressure felt different. It wasn't the crushing weight of anxiety that used to paralyze him. It was a steady, heavy load, like a well-packed rucksack. Heavy, yes, but he had the muscles to carry it now. Midoriya-chan, a croaking voice interrupted his thoughts. Izuku looked up. Tsuyu Ajiri was staring at him with her large, inquisitive eyes. Yes, Ajiri-san? Call me Tsuyu, she corrected him effortlessly. I tend to say what's on my mind. Your quirk, it's a lot like All Might's, isn't it? The bus went quiet. It was the question everyone had been thinking, especially after the physical prowess Izuku had displayed during the battle trials. The speed. The strength. The lightning. In another life, Izuku would have panicked. He would have waved his hands, stammered a denial, and sweated through his costume. But this Izuku had spent a month getting kicked in the head by Gran Torino every time he hesitated. He smiled, a calm, measured expression. I can see why you'd think that, Tsuyu. We both rely on massive power output. But All Might is invulnerable. He's a fortress. He looked at his hand, clenching it gently, green sparks dancing between his knuckles. I'm more like a battery. I have to manage the charge or I burn out. It's a power accumulation type. It's super flashy though. Eijiro Kurishima piped up from the seat across the aisle. And strong. My hardening is useful, sure, but it doesn't have that heroic vibe, you know? You and Bakugo, you guys are flashy. Flashy doesn't mean effective, Izuku said, glancing toward the front of the bus where Bakugo sat alone, staring out the window with a scowl. If you can't control the flash, you just blind yourself. Whoa, Denki Kaminari whistled. Deep. You sound like a pro already. The bus began to slow. We're here, Shota Aizawa announced from the front, his voice dry and tired. Quiet down. The USJ was a marvel of engineering. A massive dome housing distinct environments, a shipwreck zone, a landslide zone, a fire zone, a windstorm zone. It was a playground for catastrophe. Standing on the central platform at the top of the long staircase, 13, the space hero, was giving her speech about the dangers of quirks. Power can easily kill, 13 said, her voice amplified by her suit. This class is about learning how to use your quirks to save lives, not to inflict harm. Izuku listened, nodding. Control. That's what Torino taught me. Saving people requires precision, not just smashing. Suddenly, the lights in the massive dome flickered. A low, electrical buzz vibrated through the air. Izuku's senses, heightened by the constant 5% hum of full cowl, picked it up first. He turned his head toward the central plaza down below. The fountain sputtered and died. In the center of the plaza, space began to distort. A tiny purple point expanded, swirling into a massive vortex of black mist. It felt like looking into a drain at the bottom of the universe. From the void, a hand reached out. Pale, dry skin. Then a face, obscured by a disembodied hand clutching it. Then a body, and then eyes. Red, manic eyes. Gather together and don't move. Aizawa shouted, his voice snapping from board teacher to underground pro instantly. 13. Protect the students. What is that? Kurishima asked, squinting. Is this like the entrance exam? Has the lesson started already? Izuku took a step forward, his eyes narrowing. He saw them emerging from the mist, dozens of them. Thugs with mutant quirks, giants, men with weapons, and at the center, the man with the hands, and a towering, bird-beaked monstrosity that stood as still as a statue. Don't move! Aizawa yelled again, putting on his yellow goggles. Those are villains! The word hung in the air, heavy and cold. Villains. Real ones. Not robots. Not classmates playing a role. 13 and Eraserhead, huh? The man with the hands spoke, his voice scratching across the distance like sandpaper. The teacher's schedule we received said All Might was supposed to be here. The trespassing the other day was the work of these scumbags after all, Aizawa muttered, his scarf floating up around him. Where is he? The handman asked, sounding like a petulant child denied a toy. I went through the trouble of bringing this whole crowd. All Might, the symbol of peace. I can't believe he's not here. Maybe if I kill a few kids, he'll come out to play? Fear rippled through the class. Mineta began to whimper, but Izuku didn't tremble. He felt a cold clarity wash over him. Analyze. Leader, handman. Likely a touch-based quirk given how he holds his fingers. Dangerous. The mist, warping. That's how they got in. Priority target. The bird monster, the muscle. It hasn't moved. It's waiting for orders. Aizawa-sensei is going to jump down. Sensei! Izuku shouted. You can't fight them all alone. Your style is capturing villains one by one after erasing their quirks. In a group battle against unknowns, you're at a disadvantage. Aizawa paused for a fraction of a second, looking back. No good hero is a one-trick pony, Midoriya. With that, Eraserhead leaped. He descended the stairs, scarf lashing out, capturing 3 villains before his feet even touched the ground. He's amazing, Uraraka breathed. We have to go. Ida yelled, taking charge as class rep. Everyone, to the exit. 13 Sensei, please lead us. The class turned and ran toward the massive doors. Izuku lingered for a split second, watching Aizawa work, before turning to follow. But the enemy wasn't going to let them leave. The purple mist materialized in front of the door, blocking their path. Yellow eyes narrowed in the smoke. Nice to meet you, the mist said, his voice polite and terrifying. We are the League of Villains. It may be presumptuous of us, but we have invited ourselves into the home of heroes, UA High School, in order to have All Might, the symbol of peace, take his last breath. Bakugo and Kirishima didn't hesitate. Bet you didn't think we'd kick your ass before you could do anything. Bakugo roared, launching himself forward with an explosion. Kirishima followed with a hardened strike. Boom! Smoke cleared. The mist was unharmed. That was dangerous, the mist mused. That's right. Even if you are students, you are excellent golden eggs. Move back! Both of you! 13 commanded, raising her finger to activate Black Hole, but the mist expanded. My job is to scatter you and torture you to death. Darkness engulfed them. Izuku felt the ground disappear. Gravity twisted. Full call! He activated his quirk instantly, green lightning illuminating the inside of the warp gate for a brief second. He tried to grab Uraraka's hand, but his fingers grasped only smoke. Stay calm! He yelled into the void. Then, the world spun. The shipwreck zone. The sensation of falling ended abruptly. Splash! Izuku hit deep water. The cold shock was instant. Salt water. Shipwreck zone. He held his breath. He opened his eyes. The water was murky, but he could see dark shapes moving toward him. Fast. Villains. Aquatic types. A shark-faced man lunged, jaws gaping. Izuku didn't panic. He didn't flail. Torino's bathtub training. Water resistance is just thick air. Izuku spun in the water, channeling 8% into his legs. He kicked the water, creating a cavitation bubble that propelled him upward like a torpedo. He dodged the shark man's bite by inches. He breached the surface, gasping for air. Midoriya-chan, Tsuyu! Izuku spotted her swimming toward a sinking boat in the center of the artificial lake. Mineta was clinging to her back, screaming. Izuku kicked off the surface of the water, a technique that required immense leg strength and precise timing, and vaulted onto the deck of the rusting vessel. He landed in a crouch, water dripping from his green costume. Tsuyu and Mineta scrambled up beside him. We're surrounded! Mineta wailed, throwing balls into the water aimlessly. We're gonna die. I haven't even touched a boob yet, Mineta, quiet, Izuku said. His voice wasn't loud, but it possessed a steel core that made the small boy shut his mouth. Izuku walked to the railing and looked down. The water was churning. Dozens of villains were circling the boat, waiting. They aren't attacking all at once, Izuku observed. They're cautious. Why? Tsuyu asked, tilting her head. They have the advantage. Because they don't know our quirks, Izuku realized aloud. Think about it. The warping was random. They dumped us in zones to separate us, but they didn't match us to our weaknesses. If they knew you were a frog, Tsuyu, they wouldn't have dropped you in the water. They'd have put you in the fire zone, Kero. That makes sense. Which means, Izuku turned to them, we have the element of surprise. But only for one move. What do we do? Mineta shivered. They're gonna sink the boat. A massive hand made of water smashed into the hull. The metal groaned. The ship tilted. Exactly, Izuku said. They're getting impatient. Mineta, what's the limit on your pop-off balls? Depending on how I feel, they can stick for a whole day. And they bounce off me, but stick to anything else. Perfect. Izuku grinned. It was a sharp, confident grin that looked a little too much like Gran Torino's. Tsuyu, grab Mineta. Be ready to jump on my signal. What are you going to do, Midoriya-chan? Izuku stepped to the edge of the boat. He looked down at the swarm of villains. They're clustered. Waiting for the ship to break. He took a deep breath. He visualized the microwave. The taiyaki. The flow. I need a massive displacement of water. A shockwave. In the past, I would have used 100% and shattered my fingers. I would be a liability. Not today. He spread his feet. He raised both hands, fingers splayed. Full cowl. Double Detroit. He focused the power. Not into the bones, but into the air pressure in front of his palms. He pushed the output to his absolute controlled limit. 15%. Delaware smash. He flicked all 10 fingers simultaneously while thrusting his palms forward. The air pressure cannon didn't break the sound barrier like All Might's, but it was devastating. It hit the water surface with the force of a falling truck. Boom! The water didn't just splash, it parted. The impact created a massive, violent depression in the center of the lake. The resulting backflow created a colossal whirlpool. Now, Mineta! Throw everything you have, eek! Take this. And this. And this. Mineta plucked the purple balls from his head like a machine gun, hurling them into the vortex. The villains, caught in the spinning current, were dragged together. What is this? I can't swim against it. Something's sticking to me. Within seconds, the aquatic villains were a singular, glued-together ball of groaning humanity, spinning helplessly in the center of the lake. Tsuyu, hold on! Izuku yelled. He didn't wait for her to carry him. He grabbed Tsuyu, who was holding Mineta, by the waist. Hey! Mineta squeaked. Hold tight. Izuku channeled power into his legs. The ship was sinking fast. Launch! He jumped. It was a monstrous leap. They soared through the air, clearing the remaining stretch of water. Izuku adjusted his angle in midair, spotting the shoreline. They landed with a heavy thud on the concrete edge of the zone. Izuku absorbed the impact with a roll, depositing his classmates safely. He stood up immediately, scanning the horizon. That was amazing, Midoriya-chan, Tsuyu said, eyes wide. You didn't even get hurt. Izuku looked at his hands. His fingers were red, trembling slightly from the strain of the 15% burst, but they were whole. I'm okay, he said. Then he looked toward the central plaza. His heart stopped. Aizawa was fighting. But he wasn't winning anymore. The giant bird monster, the Noma, was standing over him. Aizawa's arm was bent at a sickening angle. The Noma was pounding him into the pavement. Smash! 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 Blood sprayed. Sensei! Izuku whispered. We should head to the entrance, Mineta whispered, tugging on Izuku's leg. We gotta get help. You guys go, Izuku said. His voice was cold. What? Tsuyu stared at him. You can't go down there. That monster is breaking Eraserhead like a twig. That's why I have to go, Izuku said. He turned to them, green lightning already crackling around his body, brighter than before. Get to the entrance. Find Ida. Tell him to run faster. I'm going to buy time. Midoriya! He didn't listen. He vanished. The central plaza. Shota Aizawa was conscious, but barely. Pain was his entire world. His elbow was pulverized. His face was being mashed into the concrete. You can erase quirks. Shigaraki Tamura scratched his neck, watching the Noma work. That's annoying. But you can't erase pure physical power, can you? This is the anti-symbol of peace. Noma, the creature screeched. It raised a massive, purple fist for a killing blow. Aizawa tried to lift his head. I can't move. The fist came down. Aizawa closed his eyes. Whoosh! A blast of wind pressure hit Aizawa's face. He opened his eyes. He wasn't dead. The Noma's fist was stopped. No, not stopped. It had hit the ground, missing Aizawa's head by inches. Standing 5 meters away, skidding to a halt with smoke rising from his boots, was a green blur. He was holding Aizawa's capture scarf, which he had snatched from the ground and wrapped around Aizawa's waist in a split second, yanking the teacher out of the kill zone. Midoriya? Aizawa wheezed, blood dripping into his eye. Izuku stood between the pro-hero and the monster. He was breathing hard. The 15% dash had burned. I'm late, Izuku said, staring at the Noma. Sorry, Sensei. Shigaraki stopped scratching his neck. He tilted his head. A student? That was fast. Faster than the eye could follow. Was that a speed quirk? Nomu, Shigaraki pointed a decaying finger at Izuku. Kill the child. The Noma moved. It was fast. Faster than anything Izuku had ever seen. It was all might speed. Torino taught me not to blink. Izuku saw the shift in the Noma's muscle fibers. Dodge left. Izuku sidestepped. The wind of the punch tore the ear off his cowl. Too close. I can't fight this thing head on. It's too strong. Izuku began to bounce. He used the terrain, the fountain, the stairs, the debris. He became a pinball of green light. Over here, you ugly bird brain! Izuku yelled, landing on a lamppost. The gnome shrieked and leaped, shattering the lamppost. Izuku was already gone. He landed near Aizawa again. Sensei, Izuku spoke fast, not taking his eyes off the monster. I can't hurt it. I hit it with a 10% smash when I pulled you away, and it didn't even flinch. It has shock absorption or something. Get out of here. Aizawa rasped, trying to stand up but failing. You can't. I'm not trying to win, Izuku said. I'm trying to keep you alive until All Might gets here. Oh? Shigaraki stepped forward. You're waiting for All Might? He's not coming. And even if he does, Nomu will break him. Shigaraki lunged at Izuku. Game over. Izuku's danger sense screamed. The handman. Do not let him touch you. Izuku dropped low, sweeping Shigaraki's legs. Shigaraki jumped over the sweep. He was fast too, and reached for Izuku's face. Smash. Izuku punched the air between them. The wind pressure blew Shigaraki back a few feet, disrupting his balance. You little cheat. Shigaraki growled. You're just a speed glitch. Noma! Ignore the erasure hero. Crush the brat. The Noma turned. This time, it didn't just punch. It rushed. Izuku channeled everything he had into his legs. 20% burst. Just for a second, his bones creaked. The pain was sharp. He leaped over the Noma, grabbing its beak as he vaulted. He used the monster's own momentum to swing himself behind it. Detroit. He aimed a kick at the back of the Noma's knee. Impact. It felt like kicking a steel beam wrapped in rubber. The Noma didn't buckle. The monster spun around, its backhand catching Izuku in the ribs. Gah! Izuku was launched across the plaza. He smashed into the stairs, rolling uncontrollably. Midoriya! Aizawa shouted. Izuku lay on the steps, gasping. His ribs were on fire. Probably cracked. Full cowl flickered and died for a second. Get up. Get up. Get up. If you stay down you die. Sensei dies. The Noma walked toward him. Slowly. Menacingly. You're tough, Shigaraki said, walking up beside the beast. But you're just a level 1 NPC trying to fight the final boss. Izuku forced himself to his knees. He coughed, tasting copper. Green sparks sputtered back to life around him. I'm not done, Izuku gritted out. He stood up. His legs shook, but they held. I am the one who will become the symbol of peace, Izuku panted. He raised his fists. I won't let you kill him, Shigaraki sighed. So annoying. Noma. Finish it. The Noma raised both fists. Izuku braced himself. I have one move left. 100%. I'll break my arm, but I might be able to blow it back. He focused the power into his right arm. The red veins glowed angrily. One for all. Suddenly, a massive sound echoed through the facility. Boom! The entrance doors were blown off their hinges. Smoke billowed into the dome. Everyone froze. Even the Noma paused. From the smoke, a figure emerged. He wasn't wearing a smile. He wasn't striking a pose. He had ripped his tie off. His eyes were shadowed, burning with a cold, terrifying fury. I am here. All Might's voice wasn't loud. It was deep. It vibrated in the chest of every person in the room, because I had a bad feeling. So I rushed over. In a blink, literally faster than even Izuku could track, All Might was in the plaza. He moved past the villains. Shigaraki's hand, which had been reaching for Izuku again, was knocked aside. The villains surrounding the plaza were knocked unconscious. Aizawa was picked up. Izuku was picked up. In the next instant, All Might was standing at the edge of the safe zone, holding the two injured heroes. I am sorry, Aizawa, All Might whispered. Then he looked at Izuku. Izuku was limp in All Might's arm, his costume torn, his ribs bruised, blood on his chin. But he was conscious. Young Midoriya, All Might said softly. You held the line, All Might. Izuku smiled weakly through the pain. The brain monster, shocks don't work on it. Use grappling, or throw it. All Might's eyes widened slightly. Even half dead, the boy was analyzing. Understood, All Might said. He gently set them down. Rest now. The pro is here. All Might turned back to the villains. Shigaraki was trembling. He's fast, so fast, but he's getting slower. We can win this, Noma. All Might flexed his hands. The air pressure alone cracked the pavement beneath him. Prepare yourselves, villains. You made a mistake coming here. Izuku watched from the ground as the Titan clashed with the monster. The shockwaves rolled over him. He had done it. He hadn't broken his bones, mostly. He had saved his teacher. As darkness tugged at the edges of his vision, Izuku had one thought. I need to get faster. Scene end, the divergence point. While the battle raged on, All Might versus Nomu, the chaotic exchange of blows that would defy physics, something changed in the shadows. Kurogyri, the mist villain, was watching the boy. Shigaraki, Kurogyri whispered through his earpiece. That child. The green one. What about him? Shigaraki hissed, dodging a piece of debris. He moved like All Might. He hit like All Might. But he thinks. Shigaraki scratched his neck violently. He looked at Izuku, who was trying to crawl back toward the fight despite his injuries. A mini-boss, Shigaraki muttered. I hate mini-bosses. But deep down, a seed of obsession was planted. The boy wasn't just a random student. He was an obstacle. A glitch in the game. And Tamura Shigaraki never left a glitch unfixed. The air in the unforeseen simulation joint was no longer air. It was a physical weight, heavy with dust, ozone, and the crushing pressure of pure, unadulterated killing intent. Izuku Midoriya lay on the cold concrete of the safe zone entrance, his chest heaving. Every breath was a jagged shard of glass in his lungs. His ribs were definitely cracked from the Noma's backhand. His vision swam, blurring the edges of the world, but he forced his eyes to focus. He couldn't blink. He couldn't look away. Down in the plaza, a god was waging war against a monster, Carolina. Smash! All Might's hands, crossed in an X shape, chopped down onto the Noma's shoulders. The impact was deafening, like a thunderclap trapped in a jar. The shockwave blew the water out of the central fountain, sending a geyser of spray into the air. But the Noma didn't move. The creature, a towering monstrosity of purple muscle and exposed brain, simply stood there, its beak grinning mindlessly. It absorbed the blow that would have leveled a city block as if it were a gentle breeze. Doesn't work, Shigaraki Tamura cackled from the sidelines, his voice scratching through the roar of the wind. Shock absorption, All Might. You can't just punch him harder. You're getting weaker. I can see it. You're not the same hero from the old videos. All Might gritted his teeth, his eternal smile straining. He pivoted, launching a barrage of punches. Left, right. Each one broke the sound barrier. Boom. 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 The Noma matched him. Fist for fist. Izuku watched, his analytical mind kicking into overdrive despite the pain. It's a stalemate, Izuku realized, terror gripping his heart. All Might is hitting it with 100%, maybe more. But the Noma is spongy. It takes the kinetic energy and disperses it. But All Might has a time limit. He saw the steam rising from All Might's skin. It was faint, invisible to the villains, but Izuku knew what it meant. The transformation was straining. The ember was flickering. If this drags on, All Might loses. Kurogyri. Shigaraki commanded. Support Noma. Cut the symbol in half. The mist villain expanded. Dark, swirling portals opened up around the brawl. All Might threw a massive right hook. A portal opened in front of his fist. Another portal opened behind All Might's back. He's going to redirect the punch into All Might himself. No! Izuku screamed. He didn't think. He didn't weigh the pros and cons. The lesson from Gran Torino echoed in his synapses. Don't stop. Flow. Izuku forced his body to move. The green lightning of full cowl flared to life, sizzling against his skin. It hurt. His ribs screamed in protest, but the adrenaline drowned out the agony. One for all, full cowl. 10%. He vanished from the safe zone. To the naked eye, he was a green streak. To Izuku, the world was a series of geometric vectors. Target, the warp gate. All Might's fist was inches from the portal. Izuku didn't aim for the Noma. He aimed for the man made of mist. Smash! Izuku appeared in the air beside Kurojire's physical body, the metal neck brace that acted as his anchor. He delivered a precision roundhouse kick, channeled with every ounce of speed he could muster. Clang! The metal brace dented. Kurojire gasped. His concentration shattered. The portals flickered and destabilized instantly. All Might's fist didn't enter the void. It connected solidly with the Noma's face. Grah! The monster was sent skidding back, its claws carving gouges into the cement. All Might blinked, looking to his side. Young Midoriya? Izuku landed in a crouch, skidding on his iron soles, putting himself back to back with the symbol of peace. He was breathing hard, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth, but his eyes were fierce. I'm not leaving you, Izuku panted. He's designed to kill you, All Might. He has shock absorption and regeneration. But the Mist Guy is the support. If they coordinate, you can't fight freely. You are injured, All Might said, his voice low and dangerous. This is too dangerous. You're on a timer, Izuku countered, shocking All Might with his bluntness. I can't hurt the big guy. But I can keep the small ones off your back. Please, let me be your sidekick just for today. All Might looked at the boy. He saw the trembling legs, the bruised ribs. But he also saw the green lightning. It wasn't wild and self-destructive anymore. It was controlled. Focused. It was the same light that lived inside him. All Might's smile widened, shifting from a mask of peace to the grin of a warrior. Very well. All Might boomed. Watch my back, green flash. Let's show these villains the meaning of plus ultra. Yes, sir. Shigaraki scratched his neck violently, skin flaking off. Cheating. Heroes are always cheating. You're supposed to protect the kids, not use them as shields. Noma, kill the brat first, then All Might. The Noma shrieked and launched itself forward. Here it comes! Izuku yelled. I have it! All Might stepped forward, meeting the charge. The two titans collided again, the shockwave shattering the glass windows of the dome high above. This time, however, the dynamic was different. Kurojire tried to interfere. He materialized a warp gate near All Might's legs to trip him. Izuku was there. Flow like water. Izuku wall-jumped off a piece of rubble, spinning in the air. He fired a localized air blast, a 15% finger flick, at Kurojire's brace. Nuisance! Kurojire hissed, forced to dissolve the portal to dodge the attack. Your opponent is me! Izuku yelled, landing and immediately zigzagging to keep Kurojire's aim off. Midoriya is... At the top of the stairs, the door burst open. Shoto Todoroki, Katsuki Bakugo, Eijiro Kirishima, and Tenya Ida arrived, having dealt with the villains in their respective zones. They froze. They expected to see All Might fighting. They did not expect to see their classmate, the one who broke his bones a month ago, moving in perfect sync with the number one hero. Look at him go, Kirishima breathed, his eyes wide. He's fighting the Mist Guy alone. He's not just fighting, Todoroki observed, his heterochromatic eyes narrowing. He's zoning him. He knows he can't win a direct power struggle, so he's using speed to prevent the villain from supporting the giant one. He's creating a one-on-one for All Might. Bakugo didn't speak. His hands were clenched so hard his gauntlets creaked. He watched Izuku bounce off a wall, green lightning trailing behind him like a comet, and felt a cold pit open in his stomach. Since when? Since when could you stand on that stage, Deku? Back in the plaza, the battle reached its fever pitch. All Might grabbed the Noma by the waist. Shock absorption, you say? All Might roared, suplexing the creature into the concrete. There is a limit to everything. If you were made to withstand 100%, then I will simply force you to surrender from beyond that. All Might leaped into the air, dragging the Noma with him. They spun like a drill. Plus Ultra! He drove the Noma into the ground. The impact was cataclysmic. A cloud of dust rose like a mushroom cloud. Izuku shielded his eyes, bracing himself against a piece of debris. The wind pressure nearly blew him away even with full cowl active. When the dust cleared, the Noma was halfway embedded in the earth, twitching but unconscious. All Might stood over it. He was steaming heavily now. His suit was torn. He was trembling. I am getting old, All Might laughed, though it sounded strained. In my prime, that would have taken 5 punches. That took more than 300. He turned to the villains. Shigaraki was frozen in horror. Kurogyri was hovering protectively around his master. Now All Might bluffed, striking a pose despite running on fumes. Who is next? Shigaraki took a step back. He beat him. He beat the anti-symbol. He's cheating. Tamura Shigaraki, Kurogyri whispered urgently. He is weakened. Look at him. He is not moving. This is our chance. If we strike now, while he is catching his breath. Yes. Shigaraki's eyes snapped wide. Yes. We can still win. The final boss is at 1 HP. He rushed forward. All Might couldn't move. The time limit had hit. He was paralyzed, holding the muscle form by sheer willpower. All Might! Izuku screamed. Izuku was 20 meters away. His legs were burning. His energy was depleted. I can't make it. Move. Move. Izuku forced 20% into his legs one last time. Something in his calf popped. He ignored it. He launched himself between Shigaraki and All Might. Get away from him! Izuku howled, pulling back his fist. You again! Shigaraki shrieked. You speed glitch! Die! Shigaraki reached out. His hand passed through Izuku's guard. He's going to touch me. I'm going to decay. Izuku saw the 5 fingers coming for his face. The world went into slow motion. He saw his death. Bang! A gunshot rang out. A bullet hole appeared in Shigaraki's hand. Blood spurted. Gah! Shigaraki recoiled, clutching his bleeding hand. Bang! 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 More shots. One hit Shigaraki's leg. Another hit Kurogyri's metal brace. Sorry we're late. A voice boomed from the entrance. Izuku collapsed to his knees, his vision tunneling. He looked up. Standing at the top of the stairs, silhouetted against the light, was the cavalry. Snipe, Ectoplasm, Present Mike, Midnight, and Ida, breathless and pointing toward them, the pros. Izuku whispered, the tension leaving his body so fast it left him dizzy. They're here. Tamura Shigaraki. Kurogyri yelled, expanding his mist to cover the wounded leader. We must retreat. The odds are against us. No! No! We were so close. Shigaraki screamed, staring at Izuku with pure, unadulterated hatred. You brat! If you hadn't been here, if you hadn't stopped Kurogyri. His red eyes burned into Izuku's soul. Next time, I won't start with the symbol, Shigaraki hissed as the mist swallowed him. I'll start with you. And then, they were gone. Silence fell over the USJ. Young Midoriya. All Might deflated. The steam erupted, enveloping him. When it cleared, the skeleton man slumped onto the ground, coughing blood. All Might! Izuku crawled over to him. Are you okay? I am, alive, Toshinori Yagi wheezed, giving a thumbs up. Because of you. You saved me, Izuku. Izuku felt the tears welling up. The adrenaline crash was hitting him hard. His ribs throbbed. His leg was definitely messed up. But he smiled. I just did what you taught me. I didn't stop flowing. Midoriya, Kirishima, and the others ran up. Izuku quickly shifted his position to block their view of the skeletal All Might, though the steam was still thick enough to hide the truth. Midoriya, that was manly as hell. Kirishima shouted, sliding to a stop. You jumped right in there. Are you insane? Bakugo stood over him. He wasn't yelling. His voice was quiet, almost vibrating with repressed emotion. You could have died. But I didn't. Izuku looked up at Bakugo. I didn't break, Kaken. Bakugo stared at him. For a long moment, the two rivals locked eyes. Then Bakugo looked away, clicking his tongue. TCH, whatever. Cementos created a wall to hide All Might from the students as the police began to swarm the building. All right, kids, clear out. Present Mike shouted. Medical team is here. As Izuku was loaded onto a stretcher, he looked back at the plaza one last time. The Nomu was being restrained. The crater from All Might's final smash was massive. He had stood in that crater. He had fought in the eye of the storm. And he was still whole. The aftermath, 24 hours later. The UA infirmary was quiet.